Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As my colleague Chaim Asraf said, the Palestinian leadership has reconfirmed its decision to go in September to the United Nations. However, the decision as published is vague enough in terms of what they would like to do and which venue they would like to go to, which to us means that we have to think of all the various scenarios possible. To you, it would mean that I would have now to belabor you with a number of scenarios and try to be as clear as possible, because the linguistics and the politics of the United Nations can be sometimes a little bit confusing and complicated. So I would start with the first possibility, the first scenario. The first scenario is that the Palestinians will decide that they would like to be accepted as a member of the United Nations, or as they have defined it, to become members of the family of nations. There is a very clear procedure in the Charter of the United Nations, followed by a decision of the International Court of Justice in 1950. And this procedure has never really been bypassed. The procedure is very simple. The country in question has to present a request to become a member of the United Nations, fulfilling a number of conditions, like taking upon itself all responsibilities in the Charter to pursue peace, etc., etc., etc. And this they have to present to the Secretary General at least 35 days before the convening of the regular session of the United Nations General Assembly in September. Which means, if we play with the dates, the Palestinians would have to do that sometime by mid-July of this year. They would have to present their request to the Secretary General. The Secretary General will turn it to the Security Council. Security Council will establish a committee. This committee would have to give its recommendation, and then the Security Council will take a vote. If the Security Council takes a negative vote, meaning either one of the permanent members vetoes, or there are no 9 positive votes, that would mean that the request is denied. If not, if it is accepted, it goes to the General Assembly, and the General Assembly would have to vote and reach a positive decision by a majority of two-thirds of the countries present during the vote. This is the procedure to become a full member of the United Nations. Of course, the Palestinians who are worried of a US veto on such a procedure can choose another alternative, which is to go for a Security Council resolution, but not asking for full membership, but some sort of general resolution speaking about either recognition of a Palestinian state, reconfirming the right of the Palestinians to have an independent state, stating a number of the core issues, or any other decision that they would like to present to the Security Council. This is the procedure that they can choose if they want to go through the venue of the Security Council. There is another venue that they can choose to go to, and that is to go directly to the General Assembly. If they go directly to the General Assembly, I want to stress again, the option of becoming full member of the United Nations is not a possible option. Again, the only option to be confirmed as a full member of the United Nations is to go through the Security Council. So if they go to the General Assembly, it means that they opt for something else, which is either recognition of a Palestinian state, or again, any general possible formulation of a General Assembly resolution that would either recognize their right, call for the world to recognize the right of the Palestinians, or also grant them recognition within 1967 borders with the hope of restoration of the refugees' rights, etc., etc. The range is very, very wide, and we have no information at the moment that can really direct us to where they want to go, except that we assess that they would like, in one way or another, achieve the status of a state. The status of a state in the United Nations would automatically grant them the possibility to upgrade their status in all the various United Nations organizations existing at the moment. At this moment, the Palestinians are observers. They are observers in the United Nations, which gives them important rights, but does not give them two of the most important rights, which is to propose proposals and to participate in votes. Once they are granted the status of a state, this changes. And of course, their status in all other UN organizations can change also. They can ask, basing themselves on the fact that they have become members in the General Assembly, they can become members as a state in every other organization of the United Nations, which will certainly upgrade them, grant them the very important rights, and of course increase their possibility to wage their political war and their war of delegitimization against Israel. The final option that I would like to, one more thing that I would like to add to your confusion. There is a lot of talk about the possibility of convening the General Assembly not in regular session, but under a special procedure called Uniting for Peace, which was adopted the first time in 1950 when the Soviets vetoed the American attempt to send a military force to South Korea to participate in the war in Korea. But again, General Assembly resolutions are only recommendations. General Assembly resolutions under Uniting for Peace are only recommendations. There is no difference. It doesn't change the status of the resolution. They still remain recommendation. And finally, the General Assembly sitting under Uniting for Peace has been, in effect, convened since 1997, when it convened because of the Har Choma. If you remember the Har Choma settlement here in Jerusalem, the General Assembly was convened under Uniting for Peace in 1997, and that session has never been closed. So we are actually under Uniting for Peace at any given moment, so there is really no new element here to be introduced. The only difference between a Uniting for Peace resolution and a regular General Assembly resolution is in the fact that it is taken, that it has more importance in a sense. It gives more wind, and it lends more respectability and more substance to the decision. But it does not in any way change the legal status of that decision. It is still a recommendation. The final procedure that they could go for is to ask the Secretary General to approve their upgrading of status to an observer state or to a non-member state. Observer state status is in the hands of the Secretary General. In the past, in the cases, for example, of Switzerland, when Switzerland applied for membership of the United Nations, it was an observer state until 2002. When Switzerland applied for full membership, the Secretary General approved, and Switzerland joined. However, here, the situation is not so clear-cut. Palestine, in effect, does not exist as a state, does not fully comprise the 4 criteria for a state, which my colleague will later enlarge upon. So it is our assessment that the Secretary General will not take that decision, but will turn it to the General Assembly in order to garner a vote on it and not to decide on it exclusively. These are the various scenarios that we face in September. It may sound confusing, but I have tried to put some order in it, and if you'll have questions later, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.